everyone, John McCombs here with another episode of Smart Topics Dumb Comics. I'm here with Khaya Osborne. Hello, Khaya. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Khaya is a Chicago comic, and they're here to talk to us about the differences between the gender roles amongst Black and white people. So this will be a fun conversation that I feel like we can have openly as
Yeah.
two people of color
Yeah.
as we are.
Yeah. Be
So
honest.
we can start honestly wherever you want to start. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, let's take it back to like pre-colonial Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Even back then, even pre-colonially, we were all of different cultures. So we all had different gender roles, right?
Yep.
European gender roles were not going to be, part of like African gender roles, but and just community structures in general. But
Mm-hmm.
like one thing that was consistent between the two of them was patriarchy.
Mm.
There was patriarchal values,
Yeah.
and patriarchal belief systems down in Africa, and there were patriarchal values and belief systems up in Europe. It just looked a little different. And sometimes down in Africa, there were more matriarchal societies. Like, I will say that for the most part, women in Africa, in my opinion, even if it doesn't seem like it, I do think they had more respect
Mm.
relative to like the permissions that like white women had. Like down there were women chiefs.
Mm.
There were women who led whole tribes, and like they were considered, we would say queen or king, but they're gonna have different words for it down there. That's like basically like, I'm the boss.
Yeah.
These are my people. I'm, Queen Nzinga during some of the early aughts of the Portuguese colonialism. She was fierce. She was fierce in battle against them, and she led, her people in battle against them. But then also, she was also super diplomatic. So she would go do the meetings and all that, and then go home and kill their kids.
Yeah.
Like that,
Yeah.
I think black people in general, in a spiritual sense, we value resilience and strength in a
Mm-hmm.
way that white people just don't seem to do.
Okay.
Don't seem to. I'm not gonna say they won't.
Yeah. And I'll say to that end because there's like what one of the things that kind of irks me, and this is in regard to both American white people and American black people in a lot of cases, is looking at Africa as this big monolith,
Mm-hmm.
and like everybody
Mm-hmm.
in Africa is like, I don't know, Africa is 2.5 times the size of the continental United States.
Mm-hmm.
So the culture in Nigeria may be night and day between from the culture in Zimbabwe, So, and
Mm-hmm.
even in Zimbabwe or in Nigeria,
Right.
just in those countries themselves, there are multiple different tribes, multiple different languages, multiple different cultures. So it's really interesting, like to try and break that down because there
Mm-hmm.
is so much. There's so much there. Um, so that was really, I'm glad that like I could talk to somebody who's trying. I like get frustrated when someone's like, "No, I'm gonna go back to Africa. I'm gonna go visit the
Where?
homeland." I'm
Where?
like, "Yeah,
Where in Africa?
no, Africa, Africa, Africa."
Like Africa Street?
Yeah, I know. I'm like,
like yeah.
Morocco's a lot different
Mm-hmm.
from Somalia.
And I mean that's what frustrates me about the whole Hotep thing, right?
Mm.
We was kings in Egypt. We would dog, your genes are not from Egypt. I promise. I fucking promise. You don't speak Arabic, you're not Egyptian. I promise.
Yep.
Like that sort of thing. And unfortunately, that's actually part of what propelled colonialism, right?
Mm-hmm.
People flatten it. They'll be like, well, you sold each other into slavery. You sold each other into slavery. There was slavery in Africa before white colonialism.
Yeah.
Different cultures treated it differently. Some of them were just as brutal. Others were way less brutal, and it was more like a family member that's not allowed to leave kind of thing. It was all
Yeah.
based on their cultures. But like you said, there was no black. There
Mm-hmm.
was no white. White people were up there beefing. England and France. England and France have been nemesis for like 800 years. I don't even know how long. There was no race before capital saw opportunity
Yeah.
for race
Mm-hmm.
and how that could make money and how that could propel the global colonial project.
Yeah.
But of course, we sold each other into slavery. Nigga, I'm Yoruba, I'm Igbo. We've been having our own beefs for 2,000 years or however long, however many years, right? Y'all have always lived near me and I've always lived near you. You're it's like we haven't established that this is our world. Whatever is here is our world. You and me are fighting over what's right here in our world right now.
Yeah.
So when the white people come and they got gold and they got whatever and they got these sticks
Weapons.
that shoot things
Yep.
out of you there you ain't never seen, of course you're gonna sell your nemesis to whoever comes with it. People flatten the issues because they don't want to contend with perhaps their ancestors' complicity,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps like their current complicity and the holdover, the things that are left over from it, or whatever. People just are scared to have a hard conversation and they're scared to look at nuance and look at something complicated and go, yep, that was complicated. Like everybody's
Yes.
fucking terrified of that.
Yes. Yes. Nuance is missing from so many conversations these days, and it
Yeah.
it pisses me off so much. It's like all these people are this way, all these people are that way. It's
Yeah.
like, yo, it's this goes back many generations. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
history. There's a lot of like, but they also did this, and there's also that, and people want like even what was it? And now there's a bit of a tangent, but I was like watching what was it, Killers of the Flower Moon,
Okay.
and talk about the four civilized tribes of Native Americans, and it's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
these dudes were having KKK rallies through their fucking town, and like I'm glad the movie like showed that shit. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's some fucked up shit from all sides here. You know what I mean? So,
Mm-hmm.
but that's besides the point.
I haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon, so can you elaborate? There was a KKK rally.
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, the plot boils down to like these white people were intermarrying into these this native tribe who on their land they discovered a shit ton of oil.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I've heard this history. I've heard the history of this. They were, yeah.
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 So I think they struck a deal with like the United States government or already had one, and they were considered one of the what was it, the four civilized tribes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they were kind of seen as like having I guess more rights, but at the same time they didn't really have access to their own wealth. They needed a white like supervisor or something to utilize their to access their own funds. So what these guys would do is to come in, marry one of the women, and then inherit that wealth and essentially and then kill her. And that was the whole plot of this movie is about them just like massacring these people, just marrying into them. But at the same time, it's like when they what is civilized, and so them allowing KKK rallies through their territory, through their town, and just like whatever, it's what it is, what it is. Like it's that level of like complicity when you like embrace this, you know, uh, larger hierarchical structure of the United States government and what is
Mm-hmm.
seen as civilized from white people.
Right.
So that was kind of like that that's what stuck out to me in that movie was like this scene where they're having the Ku Klux Klan rally. So I was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, it's like there is this kind of nuance here that like gets missed in the conversation a lot of
And
times.
are there native people present for this
Mm-hmm.
rally?
Yeah,
Like participating? They're like, yeah,
I don't
or
remember
they're
if they're
just like
participating, but
standing there.
they're like watching and like clapping, like applauding and all this shit. You
Well,
know?
I could kind of see that in my head, and I mean, I'm black, so people expect me to just get furious about it. But it's like the fact of the matter is, for a while, certain areas, the KKK was like they were all the cops and the sheriffs and the da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if I'm indigenous, I'm already kind of like being held hostage in a way by these white men marrying into my community and then killing people.
Yeah,
I'm a hostage. I'm standing there and clap too. You're fucking terrified.
yeah.
If you stand there looking upset, what are they finna do? Kill you. They all, like
Mm-hmm.
I've seen videos. I've seen videos of white dudes having like Klan rallies, and 100% like a ritual.
Yeah.
Whether they realize it or not, it's a ritual of like
Hmm.
hateful spirit. So I'm, I would probably be, don't nobody look at me like, you know.
Well, okay. So you mentioned spirit, and I want to get into that because you mentioned. I remember we had a conversation about a week ago where you were
Hmm.
talking about like African spiritual practices, African like spirituality.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Can you dive a little bit into that and like what you've kind of
Yeah.
uncovered there?
Um, in most in most pre-colonial African indigenous spiritual practices or religions. Sometimes it was religions, other times it was just they just were doing their thing. Um, they had the ancestors was like the most important relationship. Your relationship to your ancestors was like the most important.
Hmm.
Having a good relationship to nature, having good character, and good character again is dependent upon your tribe or your ethnicity's set values, but those sorts of things matter a lot. And I am someone who I mean, I know for a fact my ancestors walk with me. I know for a fact that other spirits that are not my ancestors can contact me if they want to. Like little stuff like that. When you keep that in mind, it does kind of affect the way you move. It does
Mm.
affect the way you uh, carry yourself throughout your life and things like that. A lot of white people don't have that.
Mm.
A lot of white people don't have ancestral practices in that way. A lot of people, even though they say they have a spiritual, I'm about to get controversial. One thing I've noticed about white people is that, like, even though they say they have a spiritual practice, very little of that practice involves sitting with yourself and fucking reflecting.
Yeah.
Like it's all, incense and crystals and meditation and yoga and I'm gonna be happy and I'm gonna be happy and I'm but spirituality really sometimes looks like nigga clean your fucking room. Clean your fucking room. I struggle with that to keep my room clean and like keep my space clean, but like keeping your space. Have you ever heard or had family members who were like, cleanliness is next to godliness. Cleanliness
Yeah.
is next to godliness. That's true. It is true. Keeping your space physically clean helps you keep it spiritually clean.
Mm.
That's one thing people. This the physical is the spiritual. All these weather problems we're having due to climate change. That's also a spiritual issue. All this fucking political unrest, this war, these guns, just that's all spiritual issues. I'm not, and I know like I'm kind of afraid of the term spiritual warfare because Christians use it so much.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna call it spiritual warfare. I'll call it spiritual unrest,
Yeah.
right? Um, and there are spirits. It's like okay, spirits can be strong, they can be weak, they can be whatever. Sometimes they know they're dead, other times they don't know they're dead. Like it really all varies. But I tell you this, a lot of spirits still give a fuck about race
Mm.
because race dominated their entire lives. And not just black spirits,
Yeah.
not just enslaved spirits, white spirits too. There are tons of spirits who lived at the time, and those are the last memories they're even carrying.
Mm.
Spirits have to be elevated, and by elevated, it's kind of hard to describe, but like you, they have to be cleansed a little bit of some of their shit before they can reincarnate. I believe in reincarnation. My
Mm.
religion believes in reincarnation, but
Yeah.
everybody doesn't, and I don't like to force. I don't like to push my shit on other people's things.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like it's funny you bring up like the whole like contact with ancestors because it was like it was my ex who kind of got me more into like that practice, and she was Finnish, so she's a white woman, but
Mm-hmm.
like she's I would say cut. I also don't want to put the monolith of like white people being, indicative of an entire, because there's American, there's European, there's all this other shit.
Yeah.
Her being Finnish, also Eastern Orthodox Finnish background, um, you know, and then with that mixed cut with how like her own practices of trying to stay in touch with her ancestors, and she
Mm-hmm.
definitely had a connection with them and encouraged me to have a connection with mine
Mm-hmm.
because like you know my grandmother had passed back in I think it was I want to say 2015
Mm-hmm.
no 2014 yeah and so that was when I was deployed overseas and so I didn't have a chance to actually be here when they had the funeral and I didn't when I got back I didn't know where she was buried so she encouraged me to go and like find where she's buried visit her grave because like that's meaningful
Why didn't your
to,
parents tell you?
um like I think I mean they had an idea. Well, they knew the cemetery. They had to get that information because
Gotcha.
my father, it was my grandmother on my father's side,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think my father didn't have the exact plot. So I had to, it was more so I didn't put in the effort to actually go digging to find that information.
Okay.
So I had to go and like reach out to my uncle, and he, showed me exactly where it's at. So I did go visit her grave finally and apologize one for not visiting her earlier and then also like just let her know that I was thinking about her, cared about her because I know that
Mm-hmm.
she was thinking about me, cared about me. So like it was interesting that like I saw that connection that she had with her ancestors because she would regularly go visit the graves of her grandparents
Mm-hmm.
and lay flowers and light candles and communicate with them and she had a really profound connection with like her ancestors in that regard so
Mm-hmm.
um I was just thinking interesting that she fostered that within me um and but like you said I don't see that as much as common maybe with a lot of American white people
Mm-hmm.
but you know
Yeah. Okay. I will say that I have noticed that. What's that word? Oh, what's that term? There's like there's different types of white people, and I don't know what to call the like a lot of the white people here in America, where they come from before, Britain, France, Spain, Germany,
mm,
Germanic white people. A
yeah
lot of Germanic white people, they've been Christian so long that it's like some other, and also again, this is a general statement. Some people are gonna have found it or like be
yeah
into it. My religion is open to white people.
yeah yeah
My religion welcomes white people to come do the ancestor thing and all that. Everybody has ancestors. That's one thing people say like joke. I see it a lot jokingly online, but I think it's like a bad thing to joke about. But like white people do have ancestors. A lot of
yeah
people online will be like, white people don't have ancestors. They have demons or like whatever. And it's like they're making jokes. They're making jokes about colonialism. They're making
yeah
jokes about racism or whatever, whatever. It was like white people do have ancestors, and if we keep telling them they don't, their ancestors gonna be running around this motherfucker wreaking all the havoc
mm.
that they had been for the past 100
It's
years.
sometimes funny to see like the different internets that everybody's algorithm gives them because I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, that's the first I'm hearing of that.
Well, no, I've been on Black spiritualist
Okay,
Twitter for a while, so
yeah,
and everything is not great. Like one girl, okay, I don't really know her that well. I had seen her post from time to time, but one girl was uh she killed her children.
mm,
She killed her or killed one of her children. The other one survived.
mm,
Killed her partner. Killed herself. And she was like a big spiritual Twitter influencer, 4D, 3D, 5D, da da da. One of the things that scares me about this bitch, and we haven't talked about gender yet. I'm so sorry.
that's
But
okay. We go on tangents. It's okay. I mean,
oh
it's a
yeah,
general topic, and then we'll go wherever the conversation takes us.
thank you. Okay. In a lot of traditional religions, and I'm not talking just African, I'm talking Asian,
Mm,
I'm talking Latin American, like just any traditional pre Christian religion, you're not supposed to be mixing them.
mm,
You're not supposed to be mixing and maxing mixing and matching religions like they're socks. Like if you have one belief system, you're supposed to stick to that. Some people go do like two, three, four, five, six. Some people take what they know from the little religions and pull them out and plop them out into like this, like generally anybody can do this thing, but that still turns into, right, you're on Twitter all day, you're picking up different spiritual advice, or you're picking up different rituals from people, and now you got one ritual or part of a ritual from Paulo that someone done told you about. You have a little bit of knowledge of what they do in Isheshe when this and that happens, and you know some hoodoo, so you go and you take them all. Da, 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 da. The spirits don't like that, so a lot of these women are falling into psychosis,
Hmm.
straight up spiritual psychosis, because spirits are bothering them and they're like not handling it well. Or we got like women who, like I said, they were mixing traditions, and now you've got all these spirits of all of these religions who want your attention. They want to walk with you or whatever. Because like, so for me, in mine, Isheshe, you get in Orisha. You get in Orisha that like claims you ish. And it's like, I'm gonna guide this person, I'm gonna like walk with this person for majority of their life.
Is that like a
You share,
guardian spirit or something?
yes, and
Okay.
you share a body with them. There's a
Hmm.
whole thing where that spirit enters your body and you take care of it, and it's like a whole thing. That is enough. One spirit inside of you is enough to run you ragged. So imagine making pacts that you don't even know you're making
Hmm.
with spirits of three, four different fucking traditions. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened to her. Some of it is also this too, right? If you are spiritual, you have to understand that some remedies and some ailments are not spiritual. I've been bipolar since I was 13.
Hmm.
That ain't no spiritual nothing. That's fucking genetics.
Yeah.
Nigga, bipolar runs in my fucking family. So you don't see me out here trying to manage my bipolar symptoms with spiritual shit. What do I manage my bipolar symptoms with? Eating, my meds,
Hmm.
going to sleep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Self care, shit like that. And also knowing, like, particularly when it comes to conflict, particularly when it comes to stressful situations, when it's time for me to bow out. I don't need this job that bad if this job is going to put me in a depressive episode where I'm not leaving my bed for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. That's all spiritual as well. But nobody wants to, because it's not, right? If you walk through life thinking every little thing is spiritual, you fast track yourself onto uh, psychosis.
Hmm.
And you start, I'm seeing angel numbers here in the window, like,
Yeah.
listen, if your bank account balance is $1.11, that's not a good sign. Okay, like there are people, angel numbers everywhere. I'm like, girl, get a job and hop in the shower, please. Like, and I'm saying this as someone who was almost there, as
Hmm.
someone who almost got there, and that is what I'll to kind of bring the like gender thing into it. I'll say this: I think for a lot of Black women, white I think that white women are better acclimated to asking for help
Hmm. Yeah.
and knowing that they need to rely on someone. And Black women, we have that, a lot of us here in America have that complex about needing to rely on someone for help. I can't do that. Da, da, da.
Yeah.
This has happened, that has happened, whatever. But what it sometimes turns into is like us, Black women, being kind of stubborn
Hmm.
and not knowing like when to be like, all right, bitch, I ain't got it. We're
Yeah.
always gonna be like, I got it, because for the most part, I don't know if you've had this experience. I think this is an experience for Black people in general. I wouldn't say it's just for like Black women, but for me, I know like there have been times where I've expressed my vulnerability, or like I have expressed like I have something going on, and like that person uses it against me either right in that moment or later.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And everybody goes through that. Black, white, Asian, Mexican, it doesn't matter. But I think the frequency, I was trying to explain this to someone a while ago, because they were like, I don't think you understand that like everything you say black people go through, other people go through. I said, look, what you're not understanding is there's some shit that you go through once in your life that niggas go through every year.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to. When I was a kid, when I was 10, like by the time I was 10, I had been to maybe 6 or 7 funerals. I've been to a crazy amount of funerals.
Yeah.
Don't know too many white people that say that. Even white people from the South Side. I'm from California. You know, like that too. Our relationship to death.
Yeah.
Black men and black women's relationship to death, I think, is so much more intimate.
Yeah.
That even that sometimes spills into how we navigate relationships. Like, I don't know about you, but like I grew up where it was like I'm used to conflict. I'm used to conflict. So if you and me are arguing in this relationship every fucking day, that's not a fucking problem.
Mm-hmm.
We're just being in love.
Yeah.
Mind you, niggas have not smiled at each other in 30 years, but
Yeah.
they in love though.
Yeah.
Throwing shoes at each other's faces, but they in love though. And I know some white people go through that too when they have that same upbringing.
Yeah.
But it's less, I would say it's less culturally and socially acceptable to white people.
Yes.
White people, like, you know, someone's gonna try to intervene. You know, someone like she's gonna be like, Paulie, I don't think that you should. And like black women, we're like, girl, there they go again with that shit. Girl, there they go with that shit.
There is like a degree of acceptance of like horrible shit, just because historically, well, we had no resources essentially. So like amongst black people, like the idea that you're going, like you said, you're going to go to more funerals, but by the time you're 6 or whatever, than average white person does. Doesn't mean that that's always the case, but on average, that is going to be the case.
Right.
You're going to have a different relationship with death because you are going to see people die younger. Mm-hmm. That's just the reality of being black in the United States of America. Yeah. Also, like you said, like the whole violence toward it, like domestic violence is seen as something that is more or less like just a matter of life, as opposed to like something that's like, hey, maybe we should think of like more healthy ways to communicate with each other than with our fists. And literally, I see that, like, I know we talked about your like algorithm. My algorithm is like, I just randomly get like fucking like these hood opinions, or it's like, yo, if your girl makes more money than you, are you still the man in the relationship? And it's like, what the fuck is this bullshit? Like, even like, when it comes to like toxic like ideas like that, I mean, it just permeates this whole culture of like being more used to like negative like bullshit that we go through.
I would tell you what I find so interesting too about the money thing that you just brought up, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I was brought up in a house. My mom started making more money than my dad when I was like young, like before I could remember. She just fast, and she worked in STEM, and like STEM. Yeah. It's like if you get a decent enough entry level position in STEM, you could be set for life if you're happy with like where you're at, So my mom figured it out and just climbed the ranks. And that did cause issues in my mom and dad's relationship. My mom and dad, I'm not even gonna get into like everything with them, but one thing is that like, and I'm a lot like this too. I am a lot like my dad, unfortunately, very complacent. Like soon as I'm comfortable, I'm like, all right, cool, comfortable, good. Chill, but the funny thing about black men who have that attitude about their woman making more money than them or whatever, is that also those same black men most of the time do not want to let that woman sit home and be taken care of. Like that, like, and this is a difference of traditional femininity that's all 100% informed by racism, right? So back in the day, for the most part, there was never a time where a black woman could stay home and be a homemaker. Yeah. Legally. After slavery, the black communities got so good at being insulated that like men were starting to make some money. It took some time.
Yeah.
And this wasn't in every black community, but it was in enough of them where people started to take notice. So all types of laws started popping up everywhere saying that black women, if a Negro woman lives in this county or that county or whatever, she's got to work.
Mm.
Can't be unemployed.
Hmm.
Even though the black men they were married to were bringing home enough money to support the whole household and for her to be at home raising the kids and stuff like the white women, right?
Yeah.
Whereas white women were not allowed to work.
Hmm.
They told white women, no, your hands need to stay soft. You need to stay, your womb
Yeah.
is quickening right now. Like, it was always like domestic stuff. Take care of the kids, da 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 da. And both of those are a kind of both of those things are a kind of gendered violence because it's rendering you choiceless.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not saying that like white women necessarily had it easier, but I am saying that there is something to be said about black women's hyper independence kind of being legislated into us.
Yeah. And you also bring up another point that I was interested in, just in like exploring your opinion on, is like the idea that there is a well, one, hypermasculinity,
Mm-hmm.
and also hypersexuality of the black community at writ large.
Yeah.
So, you know, one being like the black man being this hyper sexualized, hyper masculine. And I think that also then translates to also black women being hypersexualized and like hyper masculine as well in some regards. So the idea that the black woman is also a worker is a masculine idea, patriarchal, passed down, but like that hypersexualization, it's weird because in a way it's like there's a masculinity and then there's also this hypersexualization that comes with it. However, a lot of, and especially now, more white women are taking on aspects of black people and the way black women look, dress,
Mm-hmm.
talk to accentuate their own what they describe as femininity, where it's like, oh, I gotta have a bigger ass, I gotta have wider hips, I gotta have thicker lips.
And that used to be masculine.
Mm-hmm.
Back in slavery days, that was masculine. That was it was niggerish.
Mm.
Now you want all these niggerish qualities. That is funny. But like to speak on the like hypermasculinity point and the in that and the hypersexuality point. I mean, like, I'm a recovering sex addict.
Mm.
I think some of that is to do with my neurodivergence as well, not just my race, but yeah, a lot of it is like trauma informed and stuff like that. And I was just trying to like tell myself I liked things that I didn't like, things like that. It's the whole thing. But I do think that the hypersexuality and the hypermasculinity are connected, but I don't think they come from each other.
Okay.
Right? Like black men's hypermasculinity, especially in America, a lot of that had to do with being expected to work as hard as we all did in slavery, being the like laborer. And then also like as a man, I can't imagine what it would be like as a man because I've already experienced it as a woman. But like the sexual trauma of slavery
Mm-hmm.
was imparted upon black men as well, right? That buck breaking thing.
Yeah.
That was awful. And I mean that's barely even the tip of the iceberg of all the sexual humiliations black men used to endure. Mandingo fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Mandingo fighting, that's a big one. It was so
And then you also the rape of black women
mm-hmm.
in slavery was also affected black men too. I mean, this is your mother, sister, whoever who is now being forced to have sex with a white man.
And you can't do nothing.
You can't do anything about
You
it.
can't do nothing. You ain't got no gun. You ain't got no whip. You ain't got no. That's actually no, no. Isn't that? Wasn't that part of what was happening to Frederick Douglass that one time? Frederick Douglass was getting beaten by an overseer, or he was getting whipped by an overseer. But his tall ass, he just like I forgot. I read about it. I forgot exactly why or how it happened, but he got dude's whip out of his hands and got
Mm.
him on the ground and was beating his ass.
Yeah.
He was just done, just fucking done. So like, stuff like that, I think for black women is a different conversation. Like you can't, well, not you can't, but back at this time, I don't think too many women were like, oh, I can rape a man back. That's what I want to do. It
Mm.
was, and this is another thing for us too, as black people, we transmute a lot. We take our energy or we experience some energy, it kind of stays in us. And then we got to figure out how to like push it out a different way because you can't give it back to the original source.
Mm-hmm.
We're still following those patterns. So what happens a lot when like black women think about now when black women experience sexual trauma from their children's fathers or just domestic violence trauma from their children's fathers, maybe they don't want those children. And the whole abortion conversation makes that all difficult and more complicated, but like the fact of the matter is like for the most part in our community what I see a lot is like I'm frustrated, I'm hurt, I'm angry, I'm gonna put this on the children.
Yeah.
I'm gonna project this onto the children. Not on purpose, but
Yeah.
like you're just doing it. You're just fucking frustrated. You're just moving throughout your day angry. And that's part of it too. A lot of the reasons why we metabolize gender and everything so differently is that anger that we're told we're not allowed to have.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Do you ascribe by the idea of, was it like intergenerational trauma? Like
Intergenerational trauma?
like the trauma that your ancestors experienced, say during slave times, um, is essentially passed down through you, not in a physical sense, but like you manifest like, I don't know, some type of trauma that they experience.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Trauma is actually passed down physically.
Okay.
Trauma, real trauma, like alters your DNA,
Mm.
and it alters the DNA that you. It also alters, depending on what kind of trauma it is, alters the like hormone balance of your reproductive area,
Yeah.
right? So, um, what they have found is that throughout many generations, that trauma creates a different shaped or different kind of brain.
Mm.
So, as an example, right? Let's say I have no, this is true. My grandmother's uncle has been dead since I think before she was born. They still have no idea where he was. He was dragged off by a bunch of white men one night and that was it.
Mm.
They lynched him. Still haven't found him. Now my grandma's mom, that was her brother, I think.
Yeah.
I think that was her brother or cousin or something. I'm pretty sure. So that trauma most likely affected how she, you know, goes about her life.
Mm-hmm.
How she goes about her life, how she handles conflict or whatever. Probably just affected something in her, right? Down to my grandmother who was born. My grandmother had her own experiences with racial abuse in Louisiana before she moved to California, but she moved to California when she was like 6.
Mm.
So like it was when she was young. She was like a little Girl Scout, and she told me like the story about how she had tears in her eyes. I felt so bad because my grandmother rarely cries, but she was a Girl Scout, and this man, uh, white man, let his dog out on her,
Mm.
and let it chase her down the street. She was like 5. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Could you ever imagine somebody getting away with doing that to a little white girl?
No.
No.
Hell no.
No, right? They would be at your door, dog. And rightfully, that's a child.
Yeah.
It's a fucking child. Race aside, you're dealing with a child, a small child. So like that sort of hatefulness being normalized
Mm.
is why it's why we have niggas who are kind of off. And that's why I'm glad we're talking about the like nuance conversation because I'm tired of a lack of nuance with regards to the coon conversation.
Mm.
There's some people I think are coons. Sometimes I feel like a coon. I don't know. But I will say that, like, if you really understand trauma, like you say you do, not you, but the proverbial
Yeah.
Twitter you, if you understand trauma the way you say you do, how are you so surprised and why are you so upset that there are people that are coons? We live in a white supremacist society.
Yeah.
There are people who are going to like kowtow to that because they have trauma. Like, and everybody cannot fight back. I really want people to like really consider the reality of the fact that like we live in a way overly militarized country.
Hmm.
Just this country. There's tons of other countries that are also way over militarized, as we're seeing. How do you look at all those weapons and you look at all that machinery, you look at everything they have? How do you look at everything they have and you go, why y'all niggas scared? Bitch, are you dumb? Are you dumb? Are you the Tiananmen Square nigga? Are you just gonna stand in front of the tank and wave at them to shut the fuck up? Nigga, this is real life.
Yeah.
Like that to people. Sometimes I'm like, bro, it's like this is real life and you're in the books.
Mhm.
And that's fine. We all need to be in the books, but like after the books, build something like mutual aid stuff. People who are building like urban gardens or like just solo gardens where they're like buying properties, going way off, just learning how to live off grid and shit like that. Compounds and things like that. We need that.
Yeah.
Like it's time people got to start acting like the communists they're terrified of if they want to survive like where this country is going because this country is not going to let go of patriarchy. This country is not going to let go of racism. And I don't care what nobody say. I've seen enough. Trump showed me enough and he showed me this. If white people would take slavery back if they could. They would take it back. They would put it back. And then the ones who don't would not fight for us.
Oh yeah.
100%. So I don't and not this is not everybody generally. I feel like, it's like the like I love the comics, love the Chicago comics, but even then, I know where I stand with most of them, and that's not far enough.
Yeah. It is a level of complicity, a level. It's more so, in my view. I've always liked this quote. I don't remember exactly where it came from, but it's like rarely is this choice between good and evil. It's between what's good and what's easy.
Yeah.
And when the easy option is to do nothing, most people will generally go towards that.
Yeah.
It's very it's very easy to close your eyes and say that's not my problem. I don't want to deal with it. It doesn't affect me.
Right.
I mean, naturally, we as human beings are lazy, and so it like when people when the system designs it in a way so that if you just accept it and move along, like you won't like you said the whole militarization thing. Like it's scary as fuck to stand up to essentially a tank.
Yeah.
It's scary as fuck to actually go out and when there are riot police there with batons and tear gas and ready to kick the shit out of you. It's it's much easier to just go to work, do the very bare minimum, be like, I don't like it, but it is what it is.
I did activism in Sacramento during the whole thing with Stephon Clark. And we were out there marching and barbecuing in front of the DA's office, having barbecues, regular barbecues in front of the DA's office just so she knew we'd be there. Police often show up with riot gear. They often show up with batons and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say as someone who's been out there and who has seen things get bad, 99% of the time, I'd say the police are the ones escalating the situation.
Yeah.
And then they turn around and they go, "Oh, see, they're being. Oh, we gotta get the tear gas." Like that. It was such a common occurrence to the point where we used to. Okay, and this was something else too. This I don't even. I'm not gonna say this is a gender thing. We all know it. We all know it. So I'm just gonna say it. White people are more entitled than black people. And there are situations where that's good, and there are situations where that's bad. One situation where it's bad is that like there are white people who like they really do mean well, but they haven't been trained because like when you do activism for like a while, they start training you on like how to act at
Yeah.
certain actions and what you need to do and what you need to not do in order to keep things safe for everybody. There is a time and place, and I 100% believe this. There is a time and a place for violent demonstrations against like political domination or like whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
However, when mothers are walking their babies in their strollers in this little march with us, when it's high school kids walking around like no justice, no peace, like young people, you don't start no violent interaction with police at those kinds of actions. Violent actions are planned. You're supposed to dress a certain way. You're supposed to hide your face. Like you're supposed to do all kinds of shit. Shit I'm not gonna get into it. But like they sometimes these white folks and you could tell they they believed in BLM or like whatever, but that's like as far as their knowledge went.
Yeah.
They would start problems with the police. They'd throw shit at them. They would, and we'd be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
stop! There are children here. If they get the tear gas, they don't care. They're looking for any fucking reason. They're looking for any reason to pop some shit off."
Yeah.
And to play the victim, right? And to say, like, look at these violent protesters, and this is why we're so careful about them. Like, so having to talk to them about that, and then they sometimes that conversation turns into like, well, then what are we doing this for? And if we can't fight, and I'm like, yo, I remember I was talking to this woman who was like, she looked like she could have been in her 30s or whatever. Mind you, at this time, I'm 20. I'm 20. I'm like 19, 20 years old. I was like, you're putting us in danger.
Yeah.
You have to realize that when you being a white woman doesn't matter. You're with the whole group of protesters. All the black people you claim to protect are going to suffer because you're doing this.
Yeah.
And the conversation was like, well, then what are we doing? Like I said, and then I was like, I hear you and trust and believe. This is white people get politically educated a little bit, and then you have to remind them you've been experiencing this longer than they've been knowing about it. And I promise I'm more angry about this. So when I'm telling you to chill and I'm telling you it's necessary to chill, I mean it. That part, white people are kind of taught they don't have to listen to people with more experience than them. And they're kind of taught that they don't have to listen to people that are more educated on a particular issue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to listen to you because it doesn't match my opinion, and it doesn't matter that you've studied it for 10 years.
Or that if I'm here, supporting you, that you don't get to police the way in which I choose how to support you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you are making the situation worse by your actions.
Mm-hmm.
Your heart might be in the right place, but you do not have the skill set or the mentality right now to address the situation how it should be, while keeping in mind the realities of you navigating this space. And when people start cracking heads, guess who's going to get pulled off and doesn't have access to an attorney, or access to or the respect of the due process and all that shit.
A friend of mine was shot in the face by the Sacramento Police Department during a demonstration, running away, shot in the face. How do you know how intentional you have to be to shoot someone in the face running away from you? Like, nigga, that's that's crazy.
Yeah.
So they won like a lawsuit. They won a lawsuit, but like it was still just like, this shit is dangerous, and it's gonna take so much more than protests and marches and stuff to get us out of this. We may not. Yeah. I hope, but and that's part of it with like, again, kind of bringing it back to the like black woman, white woman thing. Part of I would say part of our strength and our problem as black women is that we don't know when to give up the ghost. Like if I'm supporting you, you're someone I really, really love and trust and like all that, you could be fucking up for years. And a lot of black women are still gonna like, you know, support, love, da da da, do whatever. Like especially like addiction stuff. I've seen, but addiction is one of those things that's weird because it happens in every race. There are every race, every culture. There are common behavior characteristics and behavior patterns for each addict, but I do think your culture does affect like how you
Yeah, oh,
engage addiction. And for black women, you know, we have that mammy thing that like take care of everybody, like love on everybody, be your, you know, be everybody's everything kind of thing. And I know a lot of white women are indoctrinated into that if they're in super religious communities. But for the most part, when I see like your like average white woman who like either they went to church a little bit or like they weren't really religious, like those white women, they don't they not trying to be nobody's they not trying to be nobody's whatchamacallit
protect them, man.
everything.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be your everything. I'm not trying to take care of you.
Mm.
Like, and that is something I respect. That is one that's not the only thing I respect about white women, but that is one thing I respect about white women is like white women will like, you know what? You're fucking yourself up, so I'm just gonna let you have that. Yeah. You do that over there. I have yoga at 6. Thank
You're a
you.
narcissist.
You're a narcissist. No, the way white women will diagnose you a narcissist for the smallest thing and never speak to you again. I actually respect that. I do. I do. I might just start doing that.
Hey,
I might
some
start
people are
doing that.
just trash. You gotta like, hey, trash is trash, you know?
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, I know I
Yeah.
feel like everybody in the comments is gonna be like they're generalizing everything. And I'm like, yeah. Like I grew up around white kids. The way they like respond to consequences or like getting in trouble is different too. Like,
Yeah, I mean, the way I view it is like if people are listening to this and getting angry about the conversation, it's like, well, then you're not understanding where we said there's nuance. Like
yeah,
we are already saying there's nuance. We recognize that like yes, there are exceptions. Yes, there is more to this and more, but we have a limited amount of time. We can go into all the anecdotal examples of
no,
our
yeah,
one family doesn't do, or it's like look,
yeah,
like we're talking writ large, and like look, you that's what angers that frustrates me when people also use that nuance argument against it. Is like now you're missing the point. Yike. Yes.
people will unnuance nuance and tell you it's nuanced, and you're like, bitch,
Yeah.
I yeah. Well, okay, so wait, let me ask you a question.
Hmm.
So I know you've dated white women. You just said you dated a white woman. Have you dated black women?
I have not, and so and it's not that I
Ooh,
haven't not liked black women.
the nuance is gonna get you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm kidding.
And I will say, like I said, it's not that I have not liked black women,
Mhm,
especially like in my formative years, like around when I was in junior high.
mhm,
I loved black women. I wanted to date black women. Um, I had crushes on black women. They did not reciprocate those crushes, and that's fine. It is what it is. And then I don't know what if there was like a particular switch or something happened, but then like my uh, my attraction started to go more towards white women. I don't know if it was perhaps because that was what was being reciprocated to me. So then I was like, okay, this is what likes me.
mhm.
Therefore, I'll go after what I like. But it's not to say I don't like black women. I don't find them attractive. I do. It's just been largely now it's like, okay, I know historically that I've, pursued white women, and that is not to say anything about. I mean, you can make a ton of inferences based upon that information alone, but that's just what has been my history.
Mhm.
You
No,
know?
yeah. I hear that. I'm from California, so for me, like my first boyfriends were black just because I was like around more black people. But then
Yeah.
as soon as we moved to the suburbs, like it was all the races. There were still black people there, right? There was also white people, Asians, Latinos, Indians. There's a huge Sikh community in Sacramento, so I actually know a lot about like Sikh culture. So for me, I've always kind of like I went at least as a kid. It was like going back and forth between like black boys, white boys, black boys, white boys. Asians Asians were not giving me attention. I was giving them attention, but they were not giving me. I didn't watch anime, so I think that was the. I didn't know the password. I didn't know I was supposed to say Jinjutsu to be let in, but
You could have been a waifu.
I could have been a wife. No, like so.
You could have been a big body pillow.
What's interesting, right? And here's why I asked you
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
right? Because people are so into optics. They'll look at if you like lined up all your past partners, they'd be like, "Oh, he don't like black girls. He hate himself. He like, you know." They might say the same thing about me if you lined up my adult partners because I haven't. There's a guy that I think is like weird. We were some soulmates maybe.
Yeah.
Bullshit. He passed away.
Mhm.
So there's another black man, and we were on and off and on and off and on and off and on and off for 6 years. And I was in love with him. Like I wanted him to just figure it out so that we could like be. And he's really nerdy and like he's really like he's one of those guys who like when you meet him, you would assume he only dates white women,
Mm.
but you know, same thing. He is into everybody. So, and
Yeah.
I'm into everybody. But that all being said, since I've been an adult though, I have not had an official black boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Slept with a lot of black men, slept with a lot of white men, Latinos, all
Yeah.
that. Not too many Asians. I really do feel like Asians don't like black girls. I really feel like Asians hate black girls or hate black people, to be honest.
I mean, that is a whole fucking pathway we can go down, especially in like, Japan and South
Mm.
Korea, and like, I mean, you look at there's definitely a difference in terms of like Filipino. I feel like Vietnamese, there's a little more acceptance there, but I think like especially like
Mhm.
Japanese, South Koreans, even Chinese to a degree as well. Um,
Well, one.
Culturally, there is like this view of like the hierarchical structures, even amongst themselves, is very. God, there's so much to break down there, but like whiteness is seen as being like top tier, you know.
Over themselves. Because in India, they don't play that shit. In
Yeah.
India, India is supreme. If you are Indian, you are supreme.
Mm.
White, black, Mexican,
But I'm not
like
now.
they don't care.
I'm not even talking like culture. I'm not talking like ethnic identity. I'm talking purely skin color now. Like if you are a whiter complexion, then
Oh,
that is
okay.
seen as being
Light,
better.
light.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes,
okay.
yes. And I will say, for my own personal history, like I have, you know, kissed and been attracted to women of all different races and black, white, Asian,
Mm.
Hispanic, all that. Um, you know, and then I think for me, it's been more a matter of who aligns with what I want culturally in this, not even culturally, but who aligns more with like one like just what I like to do and like um where I like to hang out with or where I like to hang out.
Mhm.
So it has been a lot matter of like one geography and two like you know
Mhm.
um where I associate spend a lot of my time, and historically it's been in spaces where the population has been more white. So
Yeah, I've dated all the races. And sorry, what I was saying earlier is that people have accused me before. People have accused me before of only dating white men, but only because that's all they saw.
mm,
When it was like I would pursue other men who weren't giving me attention or they were kind of just playing with me. Like I've had a lot of situations where people people see what they see. They don't bother to ask questions and they just come to the conclusions, and that's fine.
yeah.
But I think that's why I mean, I asked because I wanted to see if you've had that same thing of like people just
Yeah.
accusing you of shit, and you're like,
And what I've largely found is that usually it's more to say about the people who have a problem with an interracial couple or a couple where like they see that they only date that person. It has more been that person's issue of projecting their own values and beliefs onto
mm,
that couple than it is anything to do with that couple itself.
right,
So it's their like insecurities about being able to attract, a suitable partner or so who they desire as a suitable partner. Because I'm like 9 times out of 10, the women who had a problem with me dating white women, they didn't want nothing to do with
they
me
didn't want
anyway.
your ass anyway. That's
Yeah,
my
that's I'm like,
thing. That's my thing.
why do you give a fuck? Like you wouldn't want to be with me anyway.
No,
Like
yeah,
we,
yeah.
you
And
know.
I mean, like, if you like, I find the interracial dating conversation funny with regards to black and white people in particular because there was the whole like slavery thing and like all that. But like in plenty of other places in the world, people get with like ethnic groups who have oppressed them in the past before,
Mm.
and I sometimes I wonder if those people go through the same thing or like if this is a distinctly American like because I will say American culture in general, black, white, whatever. If you're born in America, there's a part of you that just does not know how to mind your business. Black Americans, we love saying, "Oh, I mind my business. Oh, I mind my business." What are the most popular TV shows amongst us? Reality fucking TV.
Yup.
We don't. We niggas do not mind our business. We do not mind our business.
We
Like,
and I'll speak from my experiences of traveling internationally. And when I say internationally, I mean primarily, vast majority is Europe.
yeah,
Um, our relationship with race and race identity, it is more profound than in most other countries. I
yeah,
will
they
say that.
don't.
Yeah.
They even
And
in Britain,
yeah,
I've noticed they're like,
yeah. Like generally speaking, like it's just less of a focus in other places. Now in other places you'll hear more fucked up shit openly said just for a fact of like to them it's like I could get into a bunch of nuances here too, and
well, like,
it's
can
just
I
like
have an example? Because you're saying fucked up shit, and I'm sitting here trying to build it myself, and like I could just hear what you've actually heard. Like,
okay, so for instance, like I went to a I went to a rap show in Moldova, of all places, and then people are rapping in Russian, and they're throwing out the N word, you know, and I'm hearing Russian, 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 nigga, 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 Russian, 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 nigga, nigga, nigga. No one bats an eye. No one bats an eye that these white Russian dudes are saying this, and I'm like, yo, this would not fly in America, and even in like, and different language aside, even like Australians, I've seen them say some fucking weird ass shit.
oh, Australians are no, but Australians are racist.
Yeah.
Remember, they were the ones who bred the black out of the Aborigines or tried.
Yes.
So they're on some other shit. They're all and their forefathers are criminals. Let's remember
Yes.
what
Yes.
we're
Yes.
dealing
Yes. Yes.
with.
But my point is like there is a degree of like the history not as much being focused on there,
Yeah, it doesn't
especially
matter.
in their own history. Like that just was like there was no real civil rights movement to them. So like the idea that like this word has a connotation to it, it's like, oh no, that's just a thing I heard, you know.
Mhm.
So um, in certain places there's more of that, other places less. I mean, obviously it's like the more black people you have, probably the less that's gonna fly, or the more people are gonna be more, you know, uh, uh, um, cognizant of that shit.
Yeah.
But in a place where there's like zero, they're like, oh, why can't I say nigga? I hear it in rap music all the time. Why wouldn't that be okay to say?
And I think there's another level for them of like I'm sure they are racist, but
Yeah,
like in their minds though, they're like, I'm a human, you're a black human on my telephone saying words
yeah,
that are funny to me. So
yeah,
I could see it not being like a well, the one I think is funny is every time and this happens like every 6 fucking months. But there's a word, and I don't know if it's Korean or Filipino or whatever. But I see these tiny little Asian girls
oh,
who will
I think I know what
dance,
you're talking about.
and sing this. Have you seen the video? She was like, "Niga kapopo," and it's like a word. Like
Yeah,
niga is a word for
yeah.
them. It doesn't mean nothing.
It'd be like
That's bad.
that. It's like a filler word.
Isn't it like
Because I remember like walking behind a Asian dude on the phone when I was in college. It's just like Niga, Niga. It's like it like get it.
no? You were
Niga.
like, excuse me,
Yeah, yeah.
excuse me,
I think there's
Buster.
a comic or a joke about that.
You're gonna have to.
But it's real shit. Yeah.
No,
Um,
and it's uncomfortable. It's also because you're in this conflicted space as an American or as a Black American, where like if you say something or like what people are gonna be like, oh, the fucking Americans here fucking telling every fucking body to do, but you're like, no, there's real trauma behind this shit. Like, please don't like.
yeah.
So me, I'm gonna go smoke some weed, child. I'm gonna be standing outside
Yeah.
the Russian rap concert, just
Yeah. I
shaking.
was thinking of like, if I say something, I'm kind of the asshole in a weird way because
Yeah,
everybody else is
you're the
just like,
foreigner.
everybody else is just like, what? We're just having a rap show. Like and I could feel like it's interesting because I'm like, there's no hatred behind this. There's a lot of ignorance and a lot of like wanting to be this certain way, but there's no like hatred behind it. It's a very fucking weird thing to try and break down
No, I've seen
because
it.
yeah,
I've seen it. I haven't traveled there, but I've met. I've seen it.
yeah,
I've also, I've been the one to explain to like remember when there were more like Syrian refugees coming here?
okay,
We got one. I remember getting like one boy, um, who was, but we're like in America, so
yeah,
he's like rapping, and he's saying, and I was like, hey, just so you know, that word is like actually offensive to Black people when it's not Black people. Like, I had the conversation with him. I like explained a little bit more about American slavery
yeah,
and things like that, and he got it, and he was like very respectful.
mm-hmm.
And one thing that seems to work all the time, regardless of someone's race, culture, whatever, is if I say, you know how you talk bad about your mom because you know your mom. Your mom raised you. She wiped your butt. Your mom annoys you genuinely. I don't get to talk about your mom
Mm.
because I don't know your mom, right? It's a different. Do you at least admit it's a different feeling or a different situation? And they will at least admit that,
Yeah,
and then we can agree to disagree peacefully. If you're like up in my house, you're not gonna be saying, nigga.
yeah,
Like if this is not,
yeah, yeah. This is like a smaller situation, and it's
yeah.
like like, you can't be out here doing that shit. We gotta we gotta wrap up, but
We did go long.
it's all good. I just want to get your final thoughts, any like points you wanted to drive home to the people listening.
Any points I want to drive home to the people listening? Um, if you watch the way other people behave without judging them, you learn a lot about humanity and you learn a lot about identity and culture and all those things. So, yeah, that's all.
All right. Well, Kaya, appreciate it. Thank you so much for
Thank you for
coming.
having me.
Yeah, for sure. No, this was a really good conversation. I think it's a lot of people are going to learn a lot from this. So thank you again. Where do people follow you on your
Oh,
socials and
I
all that? If you want people to follow you, that is.
yeah, I am bitch dot of dot color on Instagram. And I am
I love it.
bitch underscore of underscore color on Twitter. So
Bitch of color. All right.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Kaya.
Thank you.